Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today I'm going to explain a comedy crime movie called The Happy Time Murders. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie takes place in a universe where puppets coexist with humans. However, they are regarded as second-class citizens and have almost no real rights in the human world. Also, I guess puppeteers are criminals. We are then introduced to our protagonist, Phil, who is one such puppet. He was the first and only puppet to join the police force, but was fired after making a significant blunder on the job. He now works as a private detective and has hired a human secretary named Bubbles. One day, Phil is visited by a client named Sandra White, who is a gorgeous puppet. The woman reveals that she is a nymphomaniac, but doesn't want her friends and family to know. However, someone has discovered her secret and is blackmailing her into paying $350,000 in exchange for their silence. Sandra doesn't have that kind of money, so she wants Phil to handle the situation for her. Next, she hands him the anonymous letter from the blackmailer, as well as some advance payment. Sandra then tries to flirt with him, but Phil ignores her and remains professional. After she leaves, he looks at the anonymous letter and notices the cutout letter P, which seems familiar to him. He recalls seeing the same letter in a pornographic magazine store that belongs to his friend Vinny. Shortly after, Phil goes to the store, where he notices Vinny shooting adult films featuring an octopus and a cow. A Japan-America collaboration. Phil is disgusted by all of this and asks Vinny for some magazines so he can compare the fonts to the anonymous letter. Upon reviewing it, he discovers that the font matches one of the magazines, and he's certain that the blackmailer is one of Vinny's clients. Phil then requests to look for a list of clients, so Vinny directs him to go to the back room where his office is located. On the way, Phil meets an old friend named Bumbly Pants, who is a puppet bunny. He used to star in the popular 90s sitcom The Happy Time Gang, but now just hangs out at adult stores. Therefore, Bumbly is visibly embarrassed to see his old friend in such a place. He tries his best to hide his porn addiction and even refuses to acknowledge that he's Bumbly Pants. Later, while Phil is going through the records, a mysterious person dressed in a black suit storms into the store with a gun. He tries to murder Bumbly Pants, but Vinny quickly responds and draws his own gun. Unfortunately, the assailant shoots Vinny to death and blows off the heads of both the octopus and the cow. He then brutally murders Bumbly before finally fleeing the store. During all this time, Phil remains in the office and is unaware of the chaos since loud music is drowning out the gunshots. Moments later, Phil steps outside and is horrified to see the store in complete disarray, with everyone dead. The cops soon arrive and Phil meets Connie Edwards, a well-known detective who was once his partner in the police force. They had a bitter falling out and are still unable to tolerate each other. Connie would love to arrest Phil because he is the only one to survive the shootout, which seems highly suspicious. However, Phil's former boss, Lieutenant Banning, doesn't believe he could do such a thing and lets him go. Following this, Phil meets up with his brother Larry, an actor who once appeared alongside Bumbly Pants in the Happy Time Gang. The brothers catch up on their lives and Phil informs him of Bumbly Pants' tragic death. However, the latter doesn't seem to care about such matters and says that it was Bumbly Pants' dream of dying in a porn store. In the evening, we see Phil drinking alone, reflecting on his glory days when he was the best cop in the city. Just then, Bubbles arrives and invites him to spend the evening together, but he refuses. It turns out that the woman has feelings for him, but Phil is completely oblivious to her affection. Elsewhere, we see Larry having fun in a hot tub with his human girlfriend. He shows her old recordings from the rap party of the Happy Time Gang, where Connie and Phil are also featured. Larry then points out a human actress named Jenny, with whom his brother was in a relationship back then. Moments later, Larry's girlfriend goes to grab some drinks, leaving him alone in the tub. At this moment, someone releases 3 vicious dogs into the house, which immediately tear Larry to pieces. His girlfriend is horrified to see this and tries desperately to chase the dogs away, but to no avail. Larry is nothing more than fluff. In the following scene, Phil arrives at the crime scene and is devastated by the loss of his brother. He then notices Connie again, who starts making insensitive comments about Larry's death. This sparks a fight between the two, during which they fall into the hot tub and Connie ends up biting Phil's private parts. After this altercation, they are both scolded by Lieutenant Banning, who is frustrated by their constant bickering. He then says that he wants to hire Phil as a consultant to help solve the string of murders, but Phil must team up with Connie. Upon hearing this, both of them are unhappy about it, but they have no choice but to obey orders. Following this, the duo reluctantly begins their investigation, and Phil suspects that someone is intentionally targeting the former members of the Happy Time gang. He believes that the killer came specifically for Bumbly Pants at the porn store, and the rest were simply caught at the wrong time. During their investigation, the duo meets a man named Ronovan, who is the producer of the show. They ask him about the dead actors and whether he knows anything about it. However, Ronovan appears to be prejudiced against puppets and refuses to cooperate. This enrages Phil so much that he knocks him out with a metal ball and steals some important documents regarding the show. Later, when Phil and Connie review the documents, they discover that the 7 main actors are supposed to receive $10 million in royalties. In the case of an actor's death, it goes to the spouse, and if there is no spouse, the deceased's share is divided among the remaining actors. The duo then understands that the killer must be one of the actors, who wants to receive a larger share of the royalty. With this information, they go to visit another actor named Lyle, who is now a drug lord. The two arrive at an underground ghetto, but the puppets there are enraged to see Connie because humans are not permitted in this area. Phil then informs them a little secret about Connie. After being injured on the job once, she had a liver transplant from a puppet. To verify this, Lyle offers her a puppet drug that can put a person into a diabetic coma if they take it. Connie takes the drug without hesitation, and surprisingly, it has the same effect on her as it does on a puppet. Following this, Phil and Lyle go outside for a private conversation, while Connie remains behind to play poker with the puppets. However, they begin making sexist comments towards her, and also treat a female employee very badly, which infuriates Connie. Outside, Lyle and Phil are discussing the actors' deaths when a car suddenly approaches them. Lyle grabs his gun and heads towards the vehicle, but he's suddenly shot and killed. His henchmen retaliate and shoot back at the car, but they are killed as well. Phil tries to get after the vehicle, but it eventually drives away. Meanwhile, inside, Connie beats up the sexist men and makes them apologize for mistreating women. If you're looking for a message about female empowerment, look no further than the puppet porno movie. The next day, Phil arrives at his office to find Sandra waiting for him. She reveals that she has received another threat and would like Phil to resolve the situation. With all the recent murders, he has completely forgotten about her case. So, Sandra decides to reignite his enthusiasm and begins to seduce him. Phil is hesitant at first, but when she continues to insist, he eventually succumbs to his desires. While they are loudly making love in the office, outside, Lieutenant Banning arrives with Agent Campbell from the FBI. After Sandra leaves, the officers question Phil about his incompetence in solving the murder cases. They're also worried that every time a murder happens, he is somehow always at the scene. Phil claims that he has nothing to do with the murders, but the cops don't believe him. Worried that he will be arrested, he then makes an excuse and jumps through his office window to escape. Next, Phil goes to meet his ex-girlfriend Jenny, who is the only human member of the show. However, she isn't doing very well now and works at a strip club. She seems to be quite casual about the deaths of her coworkers, so Phil urges her to take things more seriously. But Jenny admits that she needs to make a living and cannot stay cooped up forever. The two then reminisce about their relationship, and Jenny admits that she really loved him back then. After a brief emotional conversation, they head outside and say their goodbyes. However, as soon as Jenny gets into her car, it unexpectedly explodes, leaving Phil in complete shock. Moments later, the police arrive at the scene, and Phil realizes he won't be able to escape this time. He thus runs away from there and heads to Connie's house to hide from the cops. Phil notices her sleeping peacefully and looks at some old framed pictures of them together. The scene then flashes back to 12 years ago, where we see a robber holding Connie at gunpoint. Phil tried to shoot the criminal but missed, and the bullet deflected into a random puppet passerby who was with his little daughter. Connie was also shot by the robber, but she was somehow able to kill him. In the aftermath, Phil rushed her to the puppet hospital, where she received liver surgery, but he was chastised by everyone for his incompetence and was eventually fired from his job. In the present, Connie and Phil discover that another member of the Happy Time gang was found dead this morning. He apparently jumped and drowned in the ocean after being high on drugs. The duo realizes that 5 members are dead, leaving only 2 remaining actors, Ezra and Kara. It turns out that the two are actually cousins, but they are now married and have children. The duo then decides to visit them, hoping that this time they will be able to catch the murderer. In the following scene, they arrive at the cousin's home, which is located in the middle of the desert. They notice the kids in one room, who are deformed and screaming wildly in front of a mirror. The duo then heads to another room, where they shockingly find Ezra and Kara dead in their beds. There is no sign of a killer anywhere, which leaves the two frustrated. However, just as they are about to leave the house, Agent Campbell shows up with his team and arrests Phil for the murders. The scene then cuts to the police station, where we see Sandra testifying against Phil in front of Campbell. It turns out that she was married to Jenny, and she reveals that she she and Phil have been having an affair for months. Sandra then claims that Phil only wanted to get rid of Jenny so he could have Sandra to himself, but he ended up killing all the other actors to make it look like a part of a bigger scheme. A stunned Phil denies the accusations, but Campbell doesn't believe him since they saw the two making love just days ago. This causes Connie to lose her temper and get into a fight with Campbell, which results in her being suspended from her job. Later that night, when an upset Connie returns home, she discovers Bubbles waiting for her. The two have an emotional conversation where they express their sadness about how Phil is being framed for something he didn't do. Determined to save him, they team up and head to Sandra's apartment, hoping to find some evidence against her. They break into the house and discover a secret room filled with evidence of how Sandra killed all the actors. In a shocking twist, Connie recognizes that Sandra is the same girl whose father was accidentally killed by Phil 12 years ago. They then decide to leave with the evidence, but Sandra has set a booby trap, which causes the entire place to burn down. All the evidence is destroyed, but fortunately, the two women manage to escape safely. The next day, Connie visits Phil in jail and informs him of everything she discovered. Knowing she can't get him out through conventional means, she shoots him in the arm. Following this, Connie begins to scream, claiming she accidentally shot Phil, and he's soon taken away in an ambulance. On the way, Connie knocks out the driver and the orderly who is treating Phil's wound. The two then steal the ambulance and head to the airport, since Sandra is planning to leave the country. When they arrive at the location, Phil handcuffs Connie to the steering wheel to ensure that she doesn't put herself in danger again. He then goes to confront Sandra alone and eventually finds her. He apologizes for what happened to her father and explains how he deals with the regret every day. When Phil asks why she killed all those actors, Sandra reveals that she simply wanted to see him suffer. At this moment, Jenny, who turns out to be alive, shows up and reveals that she has been plotting with Sandra all along. Now that all the actors are dead, they're wealthy from the profits of the show. Next, Sandra asks Jenny to shoot Phil, but the woman is hesitant because she still has a soft spot for her ex-lover. Jenny suggests that they leave instead, but an enraged Sandra knocks out her own wife. Then, some of Sandra's bodyguards grab Phil and throw him into the plane's turbines. It seems that it's almost over for him, but at the last moment, Connie shows up. She swiftly knocks out all the bodyguards and also releases her partner. But moments later, she's grabbed by Sandra, who holds her at gunpoint in the same position as 12 years ago. Connie asks Phil to shoot her, but Sandra says he won't because he is a loser who can't do anything right. Phil then recalls his past mistake and becomes nervous, but he somehow pulls the trigger with determination. Fortunately, he doesn't miss this time and fatally shoots Sandra in the head. In the final scene, several officers arrive at the scene, and Banning congratulates Connie and Phil on successfully solving the case. He lifts Connie's suspension and also reinstates Phil's old job, which makes the puppet very happy. Moments later, Bubbles arrives to check on her boss, and he finally realizes that she has feelings for him. The movie concludes with Phil asking if she wants to go out with him, to which she gladly agrees. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.